Welcome to another edition of Ian Cameron's Football Frenzy, and this is the CFL Week 14 edition of the show. Ian Cameron with you. Labor Day rivalry weekend, one of the most fun weekends of the season in the books, and what a Labor Day weekend it was. Tons of great games. We'll recap it in just a moment. What a betting week it was for me in the CFL. Outstanding. Other than Saskatchewan frustrating me once again and falling short against the Winnipeg Blue Bombers on Sunday. Other than that, it was a perfect weekend for me in the CFL. 4-1 or 4-0 on Monday, on Labor Day Monday, with the two games. I had 4 bets on the 2 Labor Day Classic games on Monday. Went 4-0. 2-0 with the BC Ottawa game. We had BC money line. We had the over, and we had the over at a good number, 49. And it just got over the total at 50, and with 50 points in that game. But 2-0 with the BC Ottawa game out in Victoria. The only loss was Saskatchewan for me, and they easily could have won that game. And, once Zach Collaros left that game, you thought it was in good shape for Saskatchewan. But, again, defensive issues. The offense had to settle a little bit. And at the end of the day, look, just fell short. But it was a great betting week in Week 13, 6-1 overall. For Week 13. We'll see if we can continue that success here in Week 14 and what has been an overall very good CFL season. Started out a little up and down, but boy, it has been a really good last 3-4 weeks for me in the CFL, and we will look to keep things rolling here moving forward into Week 14, where we have 2 Labor Day rematches as part of the Week 14 CFL card. Before we get into the Week 14 card, we will start, as we always do, with the teams that are on bye week this week, and it is my Hamilton Tiger Cats that are on the bye week this week, and a bye week well earned for a team that showed me some passion, some actual competent play, not turning the ball over a million times for a change, which was nice. And let's give the Ticats credit. It's been a hellish season. It's been a very disappointing, very, very frustrating, very, very angering at times season for me as a Hamilton Ticat season ticket holder and fan. But to see them play the way they did against the Argos, 31-28 victory, to see them, move the ball offensively for a large portion of that game, putting up almost 500 yards of offense. Now, Toronto got it going too offensively as the game went on, but no, you can't say much more for Bo Levi Mitchell. He played solid. Greg Bell was outstanding at running back, running the football. Again, James Butler out due to what we keep hearing is some kind of injury. But Greg Bell was very good for the Ticats, no question. It was a great game from a lot of the different receivers. Tim White was huge, 180 receiving yards. The old Tim White showed up, 2 touchdowns. Stephen Dunbar, Keandre Smith, Shamar Bridges. Brendan O'Leary-Orange was a pleasant surprise, 54 receiving yards for him as well. Balance in the offense. They ran the football well. Bo with 2 touchdowns, no interceptions. It's the best part of that stat line for the Ticats. In fact, no turnovers. How about that? Finally, a fucking clean football game. No turnovers from this team. That was a sight for sore eyes. That was great to see. Mark Leggio, Lego my Leggio, as I like to say whenever he makes a field goal. Remember that old Eggo waffle commercial? That's what the reference is. 55-yard field goal for him to put the Ticats ahead, and then they hang on and get the win. Great win going into the bye week. They beat their rival on Labor Day. Something about playing the Toronto Argonauts this season, because now they're 2-0 against Toronto. 2 of their 3 wins this season have come against the Toronto Argonauts. So it's almost like, wow, if only they could play the Argos every week. But no complaints whatsoever. That was as good a game, all 3 phases. No turnovers, which was critical. And they forced turnovers as well for a change, which was nice to see. And that's now 2 weeks in a row. Say what you will about the old Southerner there, Chris Jones. Well, I'm pretty good with that football team. And as much as we've criticized him in the past, days with the Edmonton Elks when he was head coach and GM there, dismal job, dismal run, obviously. That's 2 weeks in a row that he's been the defensive coordinator, taking over the Winnipeg game last week and then the Toronto game on Monday, where the Ticats have forced turnovers. And that's something they just weren't doing. And for some reason, they could not do that. Force turnovers. They were coughing up the ball, but they weren't forcing turnovers. And suddenly the turnover margin is starting to even itself out a little bit. And it's amazing how much better chance you have of winning a football game when you're forcing turnovers instead of committing them. And we certainly saw that from the Ticats, not only in the Toronto game, even the Winnipeg game. Even though they lost, they were right at the end. They were in that game and they forced a couple turnovers there. So that's a good sign for the Ticats. Team that couldn't force turnovers, could only commit them, starting to see things balance out there a little. It's great to see the offense play well. Defense still gives up a few too many yards and big plays, and sometimes it's a little too easy still for the offense to move the ball. Argos had a couple of those easy quick strike touchdown drives. But no, it's still baby steps of positivity in the right direction, in my opinion, for the Ticats defense. And that's what you want to be seeing from this team. And really, overall, the team as a whole, I think, is showing signs of putting it together, starting to get better. How many more wins it results in remains to be seen. For me, it's not going to be enough to make the playoffs, but you just hope they put together a solid post-Labor Day part of their schedule. It's something to, and even if they miss the playoffs, something to build on for next season. By the way, the Ticats on a bye this week. They play Ottawa at home following their bye week next week. All right, let's get into the Week 14 CFL card, and we have ourselves a outstanding game to get things rolling here in Week 14. Potential Grey Cup preview. Montreal Alouettes, we definitely know they're the team in the East we think is going to be in the Grey Cup. But the BC Lions, we weren't as sure. They were struggling a little bit. 5 losses in a row, but they snapped the losing streak last week with a blowout win in Touchdown Pacific in Victoria against Ottawa last week to get them back on track. Friday night, these teams play each other. Friday night football tonight. Montreal Alouettes, 3-point home favorites, 50 the total here in this game. The Alouettes, when you look at them, they are off a bye week. And so you'd think advantage Montreal, but Jason Moss is a coach that I've said this before, not always reliable off the bye week. Not always. He's had some, look at the last time they were on a bye, by the way, off the bye. It was Saskatchewan at home, July 25th, and they won 20-16, barely, and they were down big at halftime. So I don't think it's a sure thing that we're going to see, Montreal, they're off the bye week, we got to bet Montreal. I'm certainly not thinking that way. We'll see how it goes. I think if I were to bet Montreal, I'd feel better about their team total in this game. We'll have to see if the BC defense, with Matthew Betts back in the fold, which is huge, and we already saw the dividends, and it's not so much that Matthew Betts, in his return with the BC Lions, made a huge impact as far as, he did have 1 sack in the game, but what his presence on the defensive line does is it opens up, all of a sudden you got to pay attention to Hema, and Covington suddenly becomes someone that you can't double team anymore. Just his presence means other guys can reap the rewards of Matthew Betts being back on the team, and their pass rushing ability can come to the forefront because now more onus and more attention has to be paid toward Matthew Betts, who's back from his little stint in the NFL back with BC, and look how just much better it made the pass rush. 4 sacks last week on Drew Brown in that blowout win, 38-12 over the Ottawa Red Blacks last week. So having Matthew Betts back, it's huge. There's no doubt. He was an elite pass rusher in the CFL last year, and he has the chance to get back to that level now for the BC Lions moving forward. That's a positive for BC. I like the momentum they have going into this game. 5 losses in a row. You snap the losing streak with a decisive, dominant showing and a blowout win. Nathan Rourke back on the beam too. Let's not forget that. For the first 3 games he started, there was a lot of mistakes, a lot of missed opportunities, wayward throws, not always accurate, but look what he did here. He had 29 rushing yards. He had 325 passing yards. He was very pinpoint with the accuracy. Only the 1 interception, 3 touchdowns. By far, Nathan Rourke's best game at quarterback. And it's already been announced Nathan Rourke's going to start again. And, it's a sign, and I hate to say this, but I'm not shocked by it. The moment that Nathan Rourke came back, you almost had that feeling that if they had to choose, when Vernon Adams gets back, who's going to start, you still think Nathan Rourke probably has the inside track, and that's exactly what we see. It is going to be Nathan Rourke here, even though Vernon Adams is healthy enough to be able to start here for BC in this game. Montreal, meanwhile, of course, Cody Fajardo's back. He came back for his first game from injury prior to the bye week when they beat Edmonton 21-17. They struggled early, but they got things going in the second half. Their fifth straight win, an outstanding 10-1 season. They've already clinched a playoff spot, Montreal, if you can believe it. I mean, not Labor Day just passed, and they're already a playoff team clinched. So pretty impressive stuff that tells you how good a season they've had. Will they get some of their injuries back? The one concern for Montreal was they did have a lot of injuries, especially at receiver with Philpott, with Keon Julian Grant. And it's going to be interesting to see if they get some of those players back from the injured list here for this game on Friday night against the BC Lions. Looks like right now, from what I see, Keon Julian Grant's still out. Tyler Snead, though, practicing in full the last 2 days. We have not seen Tyler Snead for a very long time. He was a very good receiver for Montreal last year. Potential for him to be really good this year. It looks like he's back at practice and might be back in the lineup too for the Montreal Alouettes. Nate Bahar looks like is there too. Austin Mack, of course, is back from his stint in the NFL. It looks like Tyrese Beverett, key linebacker, is going to be available to play as well, which is good to see. So it looks like they're getting healthier other than Julian Grant at receiver. But it's not like they've missed him, because the one thing I've said, we've talked about this with Montreal, they've got more depth than we thought at the receiver spot. Davis Alexander, who I had that interview with him a couple weeks ago, said the same thing. People were sleeping on the depth for this Montreal receiving corps. And when you lose Julian Grant, you lose Tyler Snead for a period of time. You're without Tyson Philpott right now. And what are you seeing? Nate Bahar steps up. Austin Mack is back in the fold now. Return of the Mack. It is return of the Mack. Austin Mack returning in the fold. And he's only going to get better. I mean, he only had 32 receiving yards against Edmonton, but, he got a game under his belt. He's only going to get better with more practice time. Charleston Rambo's been great. Cole Speaker's been outstanding. They got a lot of weapons at receiver. I'm going to go back to the over here. Even with Matthew Betts back, I don't think they're shutting down Montreal's offense. And you look at Montreal home games, I think this is something to pay attention to. This year, 47, 30, 20. Actually, I'm looking at the games Cody played, and Cody Fajardo started at home and finished. The Ottawa game, they put up 47. The Calgary game, they put up 30. The Edmonton game, 21. The Davis Alexander home game against Hamilton, they put up 33. But a lot of their home games, they put up a lot of points, and games have more been going over the total than staying under at home. The Ottawa game went over at home. Calgary home game for Montreal went over. The Toronto home game for Montreal went over. The Saskatchewan game is the one that stayed under, and the Edmonton game did too, but Edmonton didn't score in the second half. This isn't McLeod Bethel Thompson on the road. This is Nathan Rourke. So I don't think Montreal is going to completely put a blanket over BC's offense in the second half like they did Edmonton prior to their bye week. So for me, I would play this one over the total at 50. I think we'll probably see some points scored here in this game. It's worth noting last year they played in Montreal. It was 34-25 BC, 59 points in that game. That's when Montreal was starting to play some of their better football, started to get things going, and we had 59 points in that game. I think that's the way I would play it, is the over rather than either side. I would need more than 3 to take BC. I don't want to bet against BC, though. They finally got a little positive momentum and pep in their step again, snapping the losing streak. And Montreal's not so I'd lean BC, but I want a little more than 3. Montreal coming off the bye, and it's only 3 with them at home. This is a cheaper number than we've seen them lay at home in recent games. I'd need more than 3 to get there with BC. I lean BC. And it is, Saturday to Friday, a little bit of a short week for BC, but not the worst in the world as far as the schedule. I lean BC, but I'm not getting enough points at the moment. So for me, the over is probably the closest thing I am to betting something here when it comes to BC and Montreal. All right, next up, we've got the first of a triple header on Saturday. We've got 1 Friday game and 3 Saturday CFL games this week. First one being the Toronto Argonauts against the Ottawa Red Blacks. We've got Ottawa minus 1.5 point home favorites, or 1.5 point home favorites, 51.5 the total in this game. This is another one I lean over the total, but I like Ottawa here in this game. Very good home team all year, the Ottawa Red Blacks. No question about that. They come into this game I don't think they've actually lost still at home. They had the tie against Saskatchewan, that bonkers, ridiculous, crazy as fuck game against the Riders weeks ago. It ended up in a tie, but they still have not actually lost a home game this year at TD Place Stadium, the Ottawa Red Blacks. 5-0-1 at home this year. They're coming off their first real bad game of the season. Now, they've had some losses. They haven't had anything as bad as that. Well, not since Montreal early in the season, 47-21. This was just as bad, losing to BC 38-12, but kind of a hornet's nest, right? Circling the wagon spot for BC. They lost to Ottawa the previous week. They're back. It was touchdown Pacific in Victoria. They're all geared up for that game. Matthew Betts back in the fold. Now another game for Nathan Rourke to shake off the rust. And Ottawa just ran right into a freight train, and that they couldn't stop last week against BC. But now they're back home. They'll be focused after a blowout loss like that. They are going to be looking to bounce back strong. And I still think they're the better of these two teams. And at the moment. And when you look at the fact that Toronto, the loss to Hamilton's concerning. The Saskatchewan win was not that impressive, 20-19 the week before, where they had a million chances to turn that game into a rout over the Rough Riders and kept failing to convert on 3rd and goal at the 1-yard line. How many times? 3 times in that game. The Calgary win at home was 39-25, but a lot of it was turnover influenced by Jake Mayer, who's become a turnover machine, treating the football like a hand grenade. Talk about how strong Ottawa is at home, 5-0-1 this season. Toronto's the opposite on the road, 1-4. Not a good road team this year, the Toronto Argonauts. And look at this scheduling spot. They had to play Monday afternoon in Hamilton, and they got to play Saturday. You basically have 4 full days, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, between games, play early Saturday afternoon in Ottawa. It's a particularly dismal scheduling spot for the Toronto Argonauts. So they're not in as good of a spot. Ottawa played Saturday, and they do have to travel back from the West Coast, but Saturday to Saturday for them, not that huge, even with the extended travel. Toronto's in the worst spot. Toronto's not the better of these two teams right now. And even Chad Kelly, he's gone through the moments in games where he's off the mark and they stall and they have a 2-and-out. They're punting. And then he has these moments during each of his first 2 starts against Saskatchewan and Hamilton where he's lighting it up and they're going down the field quite easily. He's still looking to get that quarter-to-quarter, series-by-series consistency at the quarterback position for Toronto since returning from the suspension. Will he gain that kind of consistency here against Ottawa? That remains to be seen. You look at this head-to-head series. Yes, Toronto's owned it. 5 straight wins, 5 straight covers. But the game in Ottawa last year was pretty close, 27-22. I think Ottawa, it's their time to finally hand the Toronto Argonauts a loss. It's just a tough scheduling spot. You go from Monday to Saturday for Toronto. You're not a good road team. Ottawa's off a blowout loss back home where they're undefeated this year, 5 wins and 1 tie. Yeah, give me Ottawa here, money line. I like them. I think they bounce back. Ottawa here for me, -120, -125. I like the over as well because I think when it comes to Ottawa, their defense, Ottawa is starting to take a step back. Overall, their defense been pretty good this year. You start to look at some of the last few games. They give up 29 to Calgary, but they win. 27 in the home game against BC, but they did win. And then they gave up and they just were shredded on the defensive side against BC in the rematch in Victoria, 38. But they've not been a stout, shut-it-down defense the last 3 weeks. So I think Chad Kelly and the Argos can move the ball. I think Ottawa and Drew Brown will as well against the Argos defense that, look, a lot of their numbers were okay, but that secondary, and Hamilton showed it. There's holes in that secondary for the Toronto Argonauts. And again, finally, we saw a team be able to slice and dice them a bit. And on the road, Toronto's given up a lot more points this year. At home, we've seen games where they've given up just 14 to Winnipeg, 25 to Calgary, 19 to Saskatchewan. But on the road, Toronto gave up 31 to the Ticats on Labor Day, 27 on the road to Calgary, 27 on the road in Hamilton earlier this year, 30 on the road in Saskatchewan. So that defense has been definitely a problem area for the Argos on the road. So give me Ottawa. I like Ottawa. I like the over as well in that first of the triple header on Saturday. The second of the triple header on Saturday is a rematch of the Sunday Labor Day game last week. And the rematch in Winnipeg between these two teams is always the infamous Banjo Bowl, as it's called in Winnipeg. The Winnipeg Blue Bombers, 2.5-point home favorites in this Labor Day weekend rematch. The total in this game, 48. I'm telling you what, maybe I'm a stubborn fuck for saying this, but you would think, look, Saskatchewan, how many more chances can you give this team, Ian, before you stop betting on them? I mean, you give them chance after chance that, oh, this is the week they're going to step up and end this losing streak. Oh, this is the week it's going to happen. Toronto was a disaster. They had, they stopped Toronto third and goal at the 1 yard line 3 times, and that still couldn't win that game. They lose on the walk-off Rouge on a missed field goal by Liram Hairolahu, 20-19. This Montreal game, Trevor Harris played great. They outplayed Montreal. It was the game that Brett Lothar missed a shit ton of field goals, and it really did cost Saskatchewan that game, but they should have won that game, and they could have won the Winnipeg game, 35-33. Again, one play is Brett Lothar missed field goals cost them in the Montreal home loss. In the Winnipeg home loss, I think the play that really decided it was as great as a returner as he's been, Mario Alford, Super Mario, as Dustin Nielsen has called him that a bunch of times on the CFL broadcasts. What a terrible gaffe that was. And it was the touchdown that maybe was the difference in the game for Winnipeg last week. You can't fumble the kick return right by your own goal line. If you're not sure, stay away from it. But he picked it up, he fumbled it, and Winnipeg recovers in the end zone. And sure enough, of course, Winnipeg wins by 2. That play might have been the difference. Trevor Harris played another solid home game, and again, doesn't have a win to show for it, but he played well for the Rough Riders. 30 for 49, no interceptions. He corrected the interception issues he had against Toronto, and yet still couldn't find a way to win that. They're snake bit right now, Saskatchewan. They're doing a lot of good things, especially on offense. The receiving core is solid with Keyshawn Johnson and Kean Schaefer-Baker and Sam Emelis and Sean Bain Jr. and even Dante Myers has stepped up lately. They don't miss Ouellette. Hickson's been okay, but that defense, this is what's disappointing me about Saskatchewan, the defense. Pass rush hasn't been consistent. Even with a beleaguered Winnipeg offensive line missing Stanley Bryant, I didn't love the lack of pass rush. You're supposed to feast on that Winnipeg offensive line. They got multiple starters, had multiple starters injured against Hamilton. They were without their perennial all-star left tackle, Stanley Bryant, and I don't think the Saskatchewan pass rush did a good enough job getting after Collaros and making him pay for it enough in that game. And then, of course, he got hurt later in the game, and Chris Streveler took over. And even with Chris Streveler, now they did bottle up Chris Streveler good, but wasn't enough to come all the way back and win that game. And now it looks like Zach Collaros is back and ready to go. He's back at practice. It's not going to be an injury that's going to keep him out long term. He's probably back starting here in this Labor Day rematch here in the Banjo Bowl in Winnipeg. And I'll tell you what, that could be trouble for Saskatchewan, because what did we see last week against for that Rough Riders secondary against the Bombers when Collaros was in the game? They got shredded. That secondary, the more I watch them, the more I think Roland Milligan is a man alone on an island on that secondary. What do I mean by that? It means he's the only fucking player worth a shit right now on that Saskatchewan secondary. I love him. He's a great player. Roland Milligan's an outstanding player in that secondary. I'm not so sure there's another good player in that secondary, though, right now for Saskatchewan, especially when you watch the way they have played the last few weeks. It's been breakdowns. It's been busts in coverage. It's been not the balls. Where's the ball skills? It seems like the receiver is always able to find the ball against this attacking this Saskatchewan secondary, and the cornerbacks are never able to. That's become a big concern for this Saskatchewan team. And look, this is on Corey Mace. You know, you're a defensive-minded guy. You're the head coach of this team. You got to fix this shit. You got to work on technique with this secondary, because I don't think anybody the last few weeks has a clue about proper, solid, fundamental technique in the secondary other than Rolly Milligan. And that's a problem. One man can't make a secondary. I know with my Ticats, where early in the season, Jamal Peters was the only secondary player that was any good on our team. But credit to the Ticats secondary. There's been gradual, and they're still not very good, but there's been a little improvement. Saskatchewan's got to work on this secondary. That was abysmal. That was bad, what was happening against that secondary from the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. When you look at the Dembski touchdown, that was not good. That was a breakdown. When you look at some of these plays where Winnipeg's just going right down the field, Not good enough from the Saskatchewan secondary. And even the pass rush could step it up a little bit for the Rough Riders here. The question is, will they? I mean, when you look at this point spread with the way Saskatchewan's playing, right? They're on this losing streak. What have they lost? They're 0-5-1 in their last 6 games, 5 losses plus the tie against Ottawa back on August the 8th. Why the hell would anyone take Saskatchewan here when you look at where this number is? Winnipeg minus 2.5. Winnipeg is now 4-2 at home. Saskatchewan's got a losing road record. Winnipeg's the hot commodity, 4-0 straight up, 3-1 against the spread their last 4 games. They're the team on the rise. Saskatchewan's the team on the decline. Why are we only laying 2.5 here with Winnipeg? Why? That's what concerns me here. It's almost like it's just too much of a no-brainer to look at this number and say we got to take Winnipeg. And that has me thinking maybe Saskatchewan's live here. And look, if you're Saskatchewan, you got to come with some urgency. You got to come with some desperation. And also another thing you got to do is it's got to start on the defensive side, whether they can shore up things up, but it has to start with that secondary. That secondary has got to step their game up because, look, they actually kept Brady Oliveira in check. That's what's so disheartening about the loss last week. Brady Oliveira only had 42 rushing yards. Okay, you did stop the run. You have stopped the run most of the year. The run defense has been pretty good for Saskatchewan. This secondary has been awful, though. And they give up 264 passing yards to the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. They have breakdowns left and right. They're going to have to work on that. Yet this is a very, especially now, and maybe because early in the week it was 2.5, they set it at because they weren't sure if Zach Collaros was going to play. They thought maybe it would be Strevler. That is a downgrade, certainly as far as passing, throwing the football is concerned. Even with Collaros back in the fold now, I mean, he's back at practice. People got to know he's probably going to start on Saturday. Why is this still at 2.5? It seems ridiculously cheap on Winnipeg here with the fact they're in great form. Saskatchewan's not in good form. And I feel like I don't want to be on the sideline when Saskatchewan finally wins a game. I still believe in Trevor Harris. I believe in this. I still believe in Corey Mace. He's got to fix this secondary, and you got to think he can because of the defensive side of the ball, his background. I feel like I got to go down with the ship, and that's Saskatchewan. If I'm playing in this game, I'm taking Saskatchewan. Do I love it? No. Has this team burnt me enough times to be worried? Yes. But I'm still leaning Saskatchewan here in this. They got to have this. And if they have this, it's huge. Because if they win this game, they go to 6-6-1, and they're tied in wins with Winnipeg again because they're 6-6. And they get the tiebreaker because they will have won the season series against Winnipeg, which is knotted up at 1 game apiece right now. Saskatchewan won earlier this year at home, 19-9 in July. And then, of course, Winnipeg won last week. But if Saskatchewan wins this, they tie Winnipeg and they get the season series so that if they're tied at the end of the season, it goes to Saskatchewan because of virtue of the tiebreaker. This is a huge game for the Riders. They've still got everything to play for and everything still right in front of them, even after that tough loss last week. And I think they know it. And I wouldn't be surprised if we see and by the way, something I want to factor in too. Last year, Saskatchewan won at home. Winnipeg won in Winnipeg. We didn't see a repeat winner in the Labor Day Classic / Banjo Bowl last year. Saskatchewan won the first game on Labor Day weekend. Winnipeg won in the Banjo Bowl. I think we could see that here too, where Winnipeg won the Labor Day weekend game in Saskatchewan. Maybe now Saskatchewan goes on the road and wins the Banjo Bowl. I'm not moving. I want to see if we get to a 3 at some point between now and Saturday, but I'm telling you, I'm leaning Saskatchewan for again. I'm a glutton for fucking punishment. I'm leaning Saskatchewan again. And yes, taking an 0-5-1 team in their last 6 games on the road, only getting 2.5, 3 against a team that's on the rise, 4-0 in their last 4 games. You make it make sense, but I feel like I've got to go down with this ship here on Saskatchewan. I'm not usually a gut feel handicapper. Like, to me, everything you look at stats-wise and everything you look at as far as current form and momentum says Winnipeg. You got to take them now at -2.5. I'm kind of thinking against the grain here. We'll see. We'll see if I actually bet this, but that's where I'm leaning right now, that I'm going down with these Saskatchewan Roughriders here one more time, win or lose. All right. Calgary Stampeders and Edmonton I almost said Eskimos. I've never made that mistake in all these years. I almost said their original name, Edmonton Elks. We've got the Calgary Stampeders and the Edmonton Elks, another Labor Day weekend rematch here. We have Edmonton 3-point home favorites in this game. The total 51, pretty much across the board. Cashed a couple of tickets with Edmonton on Monday in Calgary. Edmonton plus the points. Edmonton team total over 24.5. The full game went over the total. I don't know if I'm going to change anything here. I might run them all back. Put it this way, I'm not taking Calgary. Calgary is now with Hamilton showing signs of life. Remember that projection right at the beginning of the season from yours truly that said maybe, just maybe, Calgary is the worst team in the CFL this year? Well, they're only one win more than Hamilton, and Calgary's trending in maybe an even more alarming direction right now than Hamilton. So let's not put it past the Stampeders to maybe wind up as the worst team in the CFL once the regular season ends. They're trending down in a bad way. They have lost 3 of their last 4. The only win of the last 5 Calgary games, 1-4 in their last 5 games. The only win was a game that they were down big, and I mean big, at halftime against Toronto at home, and they rallied from the death to win that game barely, 27-23, and Dukes was a disaster in the second half. That's their only win in their last 5 games. They get whipped at Ottawa, 33-6. They get beaten down by Toronto in the rematch against the Argos on the road, 39-25. The one thing going after those, going into the last 2 home games for Calgary was they could rely on their home record, which was 4-0. Well, you can't even rely on that anymore because they've lost their last 2 home games at McMahon Stadium. So they're no longer undefeated at home. They lose to Ottawa on a last-second Lewis Ward walk-off field goal. The defense gets absolutely shredded by McLeod, Bethel, Thompson, and Edmonton on Labor Day, 35-20. And I mean shredded. You talk about another secondary that was pathetic. Calgary's secondary, 486 passing yards for McLeod, Bethel, Thompson. 25 for 36, throwing the football. Monster day for Tevin Jones. They found a diamond in the rough in this guy. He keeps getting better every week at receiver for Edmonton. 208 receiving yards, 2 touchdowns in the win against Calgary. Curly Gittins Jr. has been great, 115 receiving yards. Geno Lewis is suddenly producing again. He had over 100 receiving yards. Think about this. Calgary's secondary was so bad on Labor Day. They gave up 100-plus yard receiving performances to three different Edmonton receivers on Monday. Tevin Jones, Curly Gittins Jr., and Geno Lewis all had over 100 receiving yards. That's pathetic. That's a disgrace. I don't know what Brett Monson's got to be on the hot seat here, this defensive coordinator. That's simply laughable that a secondary in one fucking game gives up 100-plus receiving yards to 3 different receivers. What the hell are these guys doing back there? Playing tiddlywinks, looking at the sky when they're supposed to be covering a receiver down the field? Horrible stuff. Brutal for Calgary. The pass rush, where's it been? McLeod, Bethel, Thompson had all kinds of time to throw the ball. Their run defense is the one thing that was pretty good against Edmonton. They were okay against the run. But the secondary is an abysmal, just a mess. And then on the offensive side, no, there's no run game to speak of. Obviously, they've got the injury to Dedrick Mills, but whether it's using Kylan Hill or whether it's using Peyton Logan, their kick returner at the running back spot, there's no run game right now for the Calgary Stampeders. Certainly no effective run game. And then you have the shit show and mess at the quarterback spot that is Jake Maier. 4 interceptions. Good luck. Good luck winning a football game when you throw 4 interceptions. Can't happen. 4 interceptions to just 1 touchdown for Jake Maier on Monday against Edmonton. That's unfortunately what Jake Maier is right now. We have to admit it. Can he win a game every now and then? Yeah. But what's he going to do more often? He's going to be inaccurate. He's going to skip the ball into the turf. He's going to miss a wide open receiver down the field. His deep ball accuracy he's going to underthrow receivers because his arm strength's not always great for the deep ball. And then he's going to make horse shit decisions and bad bonehead fucking decisions with the football and bad ball security. And that's what he is. I'm at the point now with Jake Mayer. You are what you are, man. How many more? How long do we have to wait to get to see you play at an elite level? I'm done waiting. This is what he is, Jake Mayer. This is what he is. He is not, to me, a quarterback that is worthy of being a starter in this league right now. He's not number one material. Now, Calgary's got no other option, clearly, because they stick with this guy. But would it kill Dave Dickinson to give has Jake Mayer found out that Dave Dickinson in a previous life committed murder and he can turn Dave Dickinson into the police at some point and end his life and put him in jail or some shit for the rest of his life? Is that why Dave Dickinson seems so hell-bent on keeping Jake Mayer as the number one undisputed quarterback? There's been opportunities to make a change. There's been opportunities to try to shake things up for this Calgary offense, and yet he keeps going back to Jake every single week on this offense. And I know Matt Schultz is on IR, and they brought him in as kind of like a backup option. But I'm at the point now where give Tommy Stevens a chance. Don't just make him a short yardage quarterback. Give him a chance to, run the offense for a few drives. Give Logan Bonner maybe a chance, the former Middle Tennessee State product going back to his college days. Give one of those guys a chance, because I know personally I've seen enough Jake Mayer to know I don't think it's ever going to get all that much better for him. He's had more than enough time to show that I'm developing, I'm improving, I'm getting better, I'm getting more comfortable as a number one quarterback in the CFL, and we're not seeing it. We're not seeing the progression. None. Zero from this guy. 4 interceptions last week. Can't win a football game like that. And now he's got to go on the road, face this Edmonton team. Yeah, Edmonton for years at Commonwealth bet against them. Suddenly now, Jarius Jackson and the good vibes that Edmonton's got going here, 4-1 straight up, 5 straight point spread covers as well for the Edmonton Elks going into this game. And all of a sudden, they're finding out how to win at home, beat BC in their last home game, which was good to see. Like I said, 5-0 ATS. We'll see how this one plays out. And it is worth noting last year in the back-to-back games between Edmonton and Calgary, I said it with Winnipeg, Saskatchewan, they split the Labor Day weekend / rematch the weekend after Labor Day last year, Winnipeg, Saskatchewan, and why I think it could happen again this year. Last year with Calgary and Edmonton won on Labor Day in Calgary, and Edmonton also won in the rematch the week later in Edmonton last year. So keep that in mind. Edmonton won in Calgary last year, and then Edmonton won the rematch in Edmonton after that. So Edmonton won both of the Labor Day weekend / the rematch the week after Labor Day games last year. Edmonton went 2-0 in those games. And to be quite honest with you, if you're measuring these two teams and where they are at and where they are going, they're like two ships passing in the night. Edmonton's on the incline, and Calgary is just going sinking fast. I understand why Edmonton's taking money here, 1.5 up to 3. They're the better team. They are very capable. Revenge my ass. Revenge my foot. If you're using the revenge angle for Calgary, you got to find another reason to like Calgary. I'm not saying Calgary can't win this game, but don't just use the revenge angle as your motive to bet Calgary here. Edmonton's the better team right now. I might even say they're the better coach team. I mean, I've really soured on Dave Dickinson here. This has not been a good 2 years for him. And they kept the belief with Jarius Jackson continues to improve. I'm at the point, too, where even if it's McLeod Bethel Thompson again at quarterback, and they don't quite yet go back to Trey Ford at quarterback this week, even if he is healthy enough to return, I'm okay with that. Because we just saw MBT, there's no pass rush for Calgary. Secondary can't cover anybody at the moment. Why can't he have another good game? If there's no pass rush, McLeod Bethel Thompson can be a good quarterback. We know that. You got to pressure him to get him off his game and to force him into mistakes. Calgary doesn't look like a team that's capable of that right now. And as for covering receivers down the field, they sure as fuck don't look capable of that right now. So, yeah, I'm back on Edmonton again. I'll probably run it back. Edmonton money line, Edmonton team total over, just like last week. Maybe even a lean to the over for the full game, that it maybe goes over the total again between these two teams. It has been an over series history, 8-2 to the over in the last 10 meetings between the Stamps and the Elks. So 8 of the last 10 head-to-head meetings have gone over the total. So, yeah, We had a Edmonton plus the points, Edmonton team total over, Calgary Edmonton over 3-0 sweep in that game on Monday. Run it back. That's what I say about this game. And if I'm betting this game, that's what I'm doing. Running it back. Same three bets. Edmonton money line, Edmonton team total over, and also the full game over when it comes to the Stamps and the Elks. Another thing, too, that concerns me about Calgary, and the receiving core is nothing special at the moment, too. Mayer was making bad decisions, and the offensive line has still not been great, and the defense has been horrible. That receiving core, outside of Reggie Bagleton, there's a lot of questions. Mark and Michelle hasn't played great. I don't know what it is, but I expected a lot more from him coming back from the NFL. Hasn't always been great. Jalen Philpott's solid, but he's no Tyson Philpott, his brother, who plays in Montreal. There's some issues there at receiver as far as quality depth as well. But it all starts with Mayer. You cannot be 1-4 TD-INT ratio in a football game and expect to win. Just not going to happen. And that's been, unfortunately, the story of Jake Mayer's career for the most part here in the CFL. And no progression. I can't say this guy is leaps and bounds better now than he was day one, year one, last year, middle of last year, whatever time period you want to pick and say, is Jake Mayer better now than he was then? You can't say he has gotten any better. And that's a problem for the Calgary Stampeders. And that's why they're languishing at the bottom of the CFL standings. And even my Ticats might pass them pretty soon. All right, good stuff. That is your CFL Week 14 betting preview. Let's go to a best bet for Week 14. Let's go with the Ottawa Red Blacks. I like this side. Money line, Toronto. I don't trust them on the road. Ottawa's good at home. Ottawa off a blowout loss last week in BC. Just wrong place, wrong time. Lions circling the wagons. Rourke finally had his best game. Betts being back in the fold. The special atmosphere in Victoria got the Lions to play by far their best game in weeks. Ottawa was at the receiving end of it. I think Ottawa will be a lot better here. Toronto, a brutal spot. Monday to Saturday turnaround. That is very, very tough. Toronto's not been good on the road. Ottawa's been good at home. Give me the Ottawa Red Blacks here. Money line, minus 120 against the Toronto Argonauts for my CFL Week 14 best bet. All right, that's a wrap for the CFL Week 14 edition of Ian Cameron's Football Frenzy. Hit the like button on the way out. I'm Ian Cameron. Enjoy CFL Week 14. Enjoy the games and good luck. And we'll be back next week for another CFL edition of Ian Cameron's Football Frenzy.